How fast are you moving right now? I know that seems like a strange question, doesn't it? Most of you would probably say, well, I'm sitting here in church. I'm not moving at all. But the truth is, you are moving incredibly fast at this very moment. Even sitting perfectly still in your pew, you are traveling through space at an astonishing speed. You see, first of all, the earth is spinning. Right now, everybody in this room is rotating with the earth at well over 1,000 kilometers an hour. You're going even faster if you live at the equator. You don't feel it because everything around you is moving with you. It's like sitting in a car on the highway. When the road is straight and everything is relatively smooth, you barely feel the motion at all. But if someone cuts you off and you slam on the brakes, suddenly you feel it. And sometimes it can be quite jarring. You might even find that everything that was in the back seat is now in the front. Life can feel a lot like that too sometimes. Most days we move along assuming that things are stable and predictable, and then suddenly the diagnosis comes. The job ends. The relationship shifts. The economy shakes, the culture changes, the world feels unfamiliar. We are carried along by great forces far beyond our control. And honestly, that's true on more levels than we even realize. You see, the spinning earth is only the beginning. The earth is also orbiting the sun at 107,000 kilometers an hour. And our sun, it's racing around the center of the Milky Way galaxy at roughly 828,000 kilometers per hour, carrying us along with it. And you see, not only this, but our entire galaxy is moving faster still through space. Scientists estimate that altogether, right now, you are moving through the universe at over 200 million kilometers per hour. Right now, you are moving 600 kilometers every second. Every second. And yet, you don't feel it, do you? You don't feel it at all. You're sitting calmly in a padded pew, surrounded by friends and family, thinking that you are perfectly still. Probably wondering calmly what you're going to have for lunch after this. And isn't that amazing? We live in the midst of staggering movement, constant motion, constant change. A universe in motion beyond what our minds can even comprehend. And that's not all that changes. The world changes, technology changes, cultures change, families change, churches change, our bodies, they change, our plans change. Life feels smooth and predictable until suddenly something pulls out in front of you and you slam on the brakes, and all at once everything that felt secure comes tumbling end over end. So here's the question I want us to wrestle with this morning. Where do you find stability in a world that never stops moving? How do we find peace when everything around you is constantly changing? What holds you steady when everything else feels like it's drifting? I'll never forget March 12th, 2020. That was the day that Premier Doug Ford announced that following March break, schools would close for an extra 2 weeks to try and stem the outbreak of a new virus called COVID-19. The first case was reported at the end of January in Canada, and other parts of the world have been talking lockdown for quite a while. But up until that point, I genuinely thought that the world would just keep spinning the way it always had. But as you all know, it did not. That 2 weeks turned into months, years. Before I knew it, we were all confined to our homes, wiping down our groceries and lining up for toilet paper. And when I really look back, I don't think that was just a temporary blip to be forgotten. That was a jarring halt to the way life used to be, from which I don't think we've ever truly recovered. And when we did emerge back into quote-unquote normal life, other things had changed. Have you noticed that we don't go out and do stuff like we once did? We still do stuff, but not like we once did. We don't go out to concerts or restaurants or movies like we did before. Church attendance never really bounced back. Volunteers in all our amazing ministries are harder than ever to find. And Zoom meetings have become normal, not the exception. Whenever I feel like we're starting to gain some equilibrium, and all of a sudden I find myself paying $1.83 for gas, $1.88 in Wasaga Beach today, I find myself canceling that trip to Disney and looking for that maple leaf on all of my groceries. You know, watching the news these days is like watching an old episode of Survivor. You just hope that your team has immunity and you don't get voted off the island anytime soon. If I'm honest, really honest, all that change, it feels exhausting. Sometimes I wish the world would just slow down, you know? The older I get, the more I realize that this world of ours has always been moving. Empires rise and fall, technology changes, culture shifts, and generations, they come and they go. So the question isn't whether things will change. The question is, where do we anchor ourselves while they do? The truth is, most of us are looking for something to hold on to. So we try to anchor ourselves to things that feel solid. We anchor ourselves to money. That feels solid until the market drops. We anchor ourselves to our health until the doctor calls. We anchor ourselves to political parties until the next election. We anchor ourselves to our careers until retirement or the job disappears. We anchor ourselves to routines, to traditions, to the way things used to be. But the problem is, everything in this world, everything eventually shifts. Everything moves. And I think that's why people just might be so anxious right now. Not because the world is changing, but because the things they trusted to keep them feeling safe are changing too. And as we talked about many weeks ago, that is a terrifying feeling. Because if your peace depends on everything around you staying still, you're never going to have peace for very long. And maybe that's why I keep coming back to this story that we find in all three of the Synoptic Gospels. It takes place early on in Mark chapter 4, and I bet you learned this one in Sunday school if you went. Leaving the crowd behind, they took Jesus along, and they put Jesus in a boat. And Mark wants us to know there's a bunch of other boats out there with him. And as these boats are sailing along, a furious squall comes up and the waves break over the boat, so much so that these experienced sailors, they're almost swamped. Now Jesus is in the stern. I looked it up. That means the back. He's sleeping on a cushion. The disciples, they woke him up. They said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" And you know, that just might be a question that you've asked God more than once. God, look around. Look what's going on around me. Look at the waves beating against my life. Look at the wind threatening to blow me away. Don't you care if I drown? Jesus got up. He rebuked the wind. He said to the waves, "Quiet. Be still." The wind had died down. It was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified. And when he was out of earshot, they asked each other, "Who is this? Who is this guy? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Friends, when life feels out of control, I'm often reminded of this story. These guys were so afraid out there on the open sea. The wind, the waves, they were tossed around like a toy in a child's bath. They're about to drown. They're freaking out. But why in the world would you freak out, no matter how bad the weather is, when the Son of God is sleeping in the boat with you? Jesus commands the storm to be quiet, to be still. But perhaps that message was not just for the wind and the waves. Maybe that message was also for the hearts of his disciples. Quiet. Be still. I'm here. It's okay. And maybe, just maybe, that very same message was meant for you as well. You see, we human beings, we live under this bizarre contradiction. We live our lives hurtling through space at 2 million miles an hour without a care in the world. But then when the wind and the waves beat against the boat, all of a sudden we freak out and we forget that we are not alone on that ship. If there's one constant in this vastly shifting, changing universe, it is this: that at the center of it all is a God who promised to never leave you or forsake you. He said, "I will always be with you, even to the very end of the age." In fact, it's the last thing he said to his disciples. And that, dear church, is an anchor that will hold even in the fiercest storm. Because even when life feels out of control and the world keeps changing around us, there is an unchanging God at the center of it all who loves you, and that love can hold you steady. Now, God is reminded of this over and over again in the Bible. I could list dozens of passages. I'll give you 3. Malachi 3:6. I, the Lord, do not change. Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And I love this one in Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging, we will not fear. After all, Jesus never, ever once promised that the storm would not come. He never promised that the waves would not crash against the boat. He never promised that life would stop changing, that empires would last, the cultures would stay the same, that economies would always be strong, that our health would never fail, or that this world would eventually slow down. And if we're honest, it really hasn't. It feels to me like it's sped up just a little bit. The world keeps moving. Sometimes so fast it can make your head spin. But here's the good news of the gospel. Our peace was never supposed to come from a stable world. Our peace comes from an unchanging God. And that's why, I think, Jesus could sleep in the boat. The storm did not shake him. The waves, they didn't threaten him. The wind didn't surprise him, because he stood at the center of it all, and he still does. Right now, this world is moving at 600 kilometers a second. The earth is spinning, planets are moving, the galaxy is turning, and your life might be feeling like it's changing faster than you can keep up with. Or maybe you're in the kind of place where it feels like the earth has stopped altogether and everything in your life has been thrown to the front seat. All the things that you thought were secure have come flying forward to land on your lap. Our plans, our certainty, our routines, our sense of control. And it's in those moments that we realize just how fragile life can be. But there is a Savior in the boat. And his word to his disciples is still his word to you. Quiet. Be still. Not because the storm isn't real, not because life isn't hard, but because even in the middle of all of this motion, you are held by the one thing in this entire universe that will never, ever change. The love of God in Jesus Christ for you. And that, dear church, is an anchor that will hold.